Thank you for joining us in Finding God in Video Games. In today's Rewind, we're taking a look back at one of the most essential, at least in my term, gaming experiences, Gauntlet. I hope you had the simple joy of playing one of the most influential hack and slash dungeon crawlers of at least my early youth, and one of the originals. It was truly a game ahead of its time. Your choice of 4 characters. I always chose the warrior because I thought he looked cool and he had great hair. And with up to 3 friends, first real co-op experiences I was aware of, you could explore rooms filled with treasures and monsters in search of the way out. And I will say, as a co-op partner, I truly did my best to play nicely with my companion, sharing items like treasures, healing items, as well as working together to solve the puzzles that were blocking our progress was the key to not only success, but survival. But unfortunately, I was an immature young man, a mischievous young man, a boneheaded young man with a truly special sense of humor, a young man that simply could not resist the siren call to do what may be the stupidest thing you could do in this game. I intentionally shot the food. Why? Because I thought it was hilarious every time the voice of the game announcer would say in his accusing tone, "Warrior has shot the food." And despite the fact that I or my fellow players may desperately need the health that picking up the food would provide, it was an urge that just could not be denied. I had to shoot the food. I must shoot the food. The compulsion could not be ignored. I had the ability to shoot the food. The food was sitting there waiting to be shot. It was sitting there so helplessly, ready to freely give life-enriching nutrients to anyone who would pick it up and consume it, and I was bent on smashing it so I could hear the collective groans of my teammates and the sweet satisfaction that the game itself was upset with me and could not understand why I would have done this. Warrior has shot the food. I still can't help but laugh just thinking about it and my friends who were very disappointed in me every time we play. It was pointlessly self-destructive as well as socially limiting move on my part, but it was still so very, very satisfying, and it was funny to me. So now, setting all of that humor aside for a moment, I find a very difficult paradox in my life, a feeling we probably all shared at some point or another. Now, as people, we exist because our bodies have a desire for self-preservation. If you're listening to this right now, then your body is currently doing everything in its power to keep you alive. Our lungs are drawing in oxygen through every breath we take. Our heart is pushing that oxygen-enriched blood through our body in a concentrated effort designed to keep each portion of our body alive and functioning. Our brain unconsciously protects us in everything we do. If we fall, it automatically will try to place our hands in front of us to cushion the impact. If we grab something hot, our hands release it instantly without giving us even an opportunity to take further damage or process it. Our bodies are engineered to prevent our own demise. Unfortunately, one layer deeper, I find a battle against my own interests. Beyond the subconscious, there is a war that exists in my soul, a battle between what I truly know is right and good and what a darker part of me would prefer to do. So let's be completely honest. We all, I think, have a tendency to give the devil credit for a lot of things that he has nothing to do with. The Bible tells us plainly that we are tempted to sin when we are drawn away by our own desires. While we do truly have supernatural enemies on this earth, they are not the biggest problems we face. The person we see every day when we gaze into the mirror, that is who we must face down. That's the one who shot our food. We are our own worst enemy, and I am in a daily battle with my doppelganger, the guy inside me who seems to want nothing more than destroy all the parts of me that desire to serve my Creator with every choice that I make. The good news is, we're not alone. As a matter of fact, there's someone who's been exactly where we are and has some pretty encouraging words to say on the subject, the Apostle Paul. You know, the guy who wrote most of the New Testament. He's been there. Hard to believe, maybe. But in the book of Romans, Paul begins a discourse on the frustrations of trying to live for God. Everything inside of him is fighting those efforts. You should definitely read at least the entirety of chapter 7 to really feel the passion of his struggle with this. But in the interest of brevity, I'll summarize it. Paul tells us that he finds himself doing the things that he hates in spite of his earnest desire to do what is right, and that there's nothing good that dwells inside of him. He carries an urging within to follow the ways of God, but he is a victim to an internal war that is pulling him towards the desire to sin. Sound familiar? I know it does for me. Paul's final cry is too perfect for me to do anything other than just quote it in its entirety. "O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death?" I cannot even begin to tell you how many times I've had at least that similar thought fall from my lips as I realize once again I have failed. And in that moment, I feel as if I'm the most wretched person who has ever lived. Despite all my desires to do what is right, here I am again, staring at my sin and realizing I've let myself down, I've let others down, and I let the God who has done so much for me down as well. And in that moment, I look inside and see this twisted, sneering face that looks a lot like mine, the party that's actually responsible for my most recent unacceptable behavior. And that's what I truly feel, the cry of Paul, as I realize I don't have some external source of torment that has tricked me that I can blame. There was no snake asking me if I'd like to try some fruit in a garden. No. The truth of the matter is I did it because my inner man, my flesh, wanted to. I shot the food. If the cry of Paul ended there, then we would truly have no hope. Caught between our soul's desire to live a life pleasing to God and our flesh's selfish desire to gratify itself until our number is called, we stand at a crossroads in need of a bridge. But Romans 7 continues into chapter 8 and answers the question Paul has raised. Who will save me from the body of this death? Jesus Christ is the one who has delivered us, and it is only through him that we can gain the victory over the sinful desires that plague us each day. It is not your fault that you cannot do it on your own. Nobody other than Jesus could. So armed with this knowledge, Paul completes that thought. We are free from the condemnation that comes from the sins of our flesh if we choose to follow the path laid out for us by the Spirit of God. Paul goes on to say that those who pursue the sinful and carnal desires in life will ultimately follow those things all the way to spiritual death. But those who crave the spiritual will find life as well as true peace. Only by denying the inner compulsions of our flawed minds and deceitful hearts and choosing to listen and follow his will can we find the ability to stand tall in a battle that we will face daily for as long as we live. So now that I'm armed with this fresh knowledge, I'm setting out to defeat the side of me that intentionally sabotages me, that shoots my food and laughs about it, and would like nothing more than for me to give myself over to the various vices and pleasures that this fallen world has to offer. I'm just going to be honest, it's not a one-step process or a simple matter of saying a few prayers and reading a few more chapters of the Bible each day. I wish I could give a solution as simple as that. But it's a conscious walk, a constant and never-ending war, a battle for the thoughts of my own mind that will never truly end. So take courage, knowing that if you are fighting to do the right things every day, you're not alone. All of us do. And anyone that tells you otherwise is either in denial or they're hiding something. But we don't have to face the same battles every day. Christ is our deliverer, and he can overcome any temptation. He can break whatever bondage we struggle with, and he is the only one who can and will help us defeat the enemy that dwells within our bones. So let's take heart in knowing that while the war will never be over, we can win the battle we're facing today. It is both easy and difficult at the same time. We have to make the conscious choice to deny the desires of our inner self, while calling on him to deliver us in the way that only he can. He has never let us down, and he has never lost, and he isn't going to start today.